What's up? Welcome to the Sword Art Online show. Super excited to talk to two guests in the real world this time because we've gone, to both places already on this show. Yay, let's get started. My name is Carrie Lane, joined by my super special guest. There we go. We got Jen, who plays Rinko.
Hi.
Yay. And then new to the house, we got John Allen down here as Critter.
Hello.
Welcome. Yes. And love it. We have a whole bunch of people live in the chat. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching this later, no worries. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. And first, since John, this is your first time talking on this show, how has it been being Critter on Sword Art Online?
I have loved it. I'm actually really grateful, even more so than if I just, to give a little bit of backstory, like I was almost a character in season 3. Things didn't really work out. So I thought I've blown it. I've missed my one chance to be in this great series. But luckily enough for me, and maybe for the people watching, depending on your preference, Mommy found something for me to do in the Alicization arc. So, and that's, it also gave me more screen time than what, it was sort of a small thing before. But anyway, it's been really cool to been hearing about this series for so long to actually have another chance to work on it and work with Alex again. And I've loved it.
Nice. Yeah, no, Critter gets quite a bit in this more second half and everything. So it's nice to have you on board to talk about that and on board the floating turtle. And then Jen, how has it been now for Rinko? Because she's had a bit more screen time as well, and possibly more later. No spoilers for people, but stay tuned. But yeah, at this point, how has it been for Rinko?
I love working on the show, and as I mentioned last time, Rinko is very dear to my heart. I think she's an excellent character. She kind of slept through a lot of the first half of War of Underworld, woke up right around the end before we went on hiatus, but there's a lot of action on the ocean turtle in this episode, and she has a lot of stuff. It's been interesting because normally she shows up for a few minutes, but there's a lot of times where she's been top of episode in this back half of the season. And I'm like, this is so cool. Rinko's getting involved. It's paying off. Like, why is she here? I'm like, because later.
Someone was like, stay tuned. Yay, we got comment here from Anime Game Lover. Jen, you're really awesome as Rinko. Your performance nearly made me cry. Oh, yes. We'll get to that emotional scene later, too. And I like this little icon. We got our turtle.
Yay! I love turtles.
Yay. I know, right? Turtles are cool.
I really did. One of my first pets as a kid actually was a turtle.
We had a turtle too.
Yeah, nice.
Yay. And then same, we got another one, Alan, saying how, also with Rinko, yes, we would definitely get into that.
Yeah, if you haven't watched this episode yet, turn away right now.
Yes. We have, so speaking of, we have the ocean turtle. Asana decides to stay behind. Rinko gets to learn that. So Jen, how was that acting that scene? And, in a real world sense too, if you found out a friend, acquaintance is like, I'm not going to come back to the world I know. I'm going to stay in.
Yeah, it's watching that last night, Sheremy gave me actual chills because when I recorded that, I didn't hear her VO. And last night I was just like, oh no, my heart's breaking another time watching this. But yeah, I think it's hard for Rinko because, she doesn't want anything to happen to her. It's dangerous. They don't know what could happen if she stays, but she also understands it. She would probably do the same thing. There's a lot of parallels between Asana and Rinko in terms of their relationships and the sacrifices they make and the choices they make for people they love. So I think all of the decisions that happen in this episode, I think are, Rinko also living a bit of that for her. I would scream a little harder for her to not do that, but I would understand why.
Well, it's like you don't really have time to argue with her. So
right,
okay.
That is the only option. It just doesn't feel good in anybody's heart.
Yeah. And get the line of take care of Alice and goodbye, which really feels final in that moment.
It does.
Okay.
I like how she does spend, she has 15 seconds left where she's like, by the way, Alice is really nice. You're going to like her. You should definitely feed her and hang out with her. She's cool. So it's very caring.
Yeah, really speaks to her character that she's like not focused on herself of like, hey,
Right. She's focused on other people. And tell my friends, you know, like let them know. It's all outward facing. She's very selfless.
Then we see the rest of our main turtle crew, but then we get over to Critter, finding out that the gate's been opened and talking to Briggs to go check it out. So this kind of started the big, I don't know, domino effect of boulder rolling down the hill. So John, how's it at the beginning of this episode where we know it goes a lot more intense later, but Critter at this point, how's it going?
It really looks like he's gonna have kind of a badass moment there when he pulls up the watch and you see his plan. And I kind of, it's sort of like what George Takei, I always back up my head, but like, when Sulu finally got away from that comm station and got to do something else for a change, here Critter finally gets to take a break from giving himself carpal tunnel syndrome and go after roll up his sleeves, as it were. And things don't go exactly according to plan. But no, I love the episode because obviously, I get to do a little bit more than just like, hey, I'm plugging you in.
So are you, question though, John, how computer savvy are you? Is this a big stretch to be a computer hacker person?
Not entirely. I mean, I wouldn't in any way call myself a hacker per se, but in high school, I can remember learning some HTML and JavaScripting back when that was a thing. I think I took C++ and some other computer courses because that was going to be like the backup plan, not the backup plan, but that was going to be how I made my money while I was pursuing acting was, computer stuff. I think I even went for like a network certification at the time, way back in the day. So it's
computer hackers
little thing right here. So.
Yes.
So your game
it's not how I make my bread and butter these days, but it's not something I'm 100% foreign to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Then we got looking here. So we got Rinko doing all she can to help Kirito and Asuna before they can log out. What did you enjoy kind of about that moment, or what was something that stood out to you, Jen, for, because previous episode as well too, because it didn't just start in this episode trying to get everybody out. But was there a moment during recording or just watching it yourself? I mean, you already kind of mentioned how hearing Jeremy say the goodbye was a big deal, but was there anything else that stood out to you?
Yeah, especially about this part, because like we'll talk about the later stuff, I'm sure later. Like I mentioned before, it's so personal for Rinko to help Asuna. Like she feels very responsible and indebted to her to make things right, and not just for Asuna and Kirito, but for humanity. And so, there's a lot of pressure. There's a very high stakes in that moment because she is in charge of the ship, like literally. So, recording that is always very intense, and you have to get that mindset of like, this is my job and I have to do it, and I have to shut that part of my brain off that is worrying about my friends and realize that like I am a person with a mission. And so that's always an interesting thing to try to balance of how much of Rinko's emotions do we let out at any moment in, like, we'll see later in the episode, we let them out a lot more versus like, I have to stay on task. I have a job. This is my purpose. So that's always a really interesting thing to sort of slide on the scale of like professional focus and falling apart.
Yeah. Well, things definitely do get intense and focus on the mission. Keeks gets shot while he's helping Higa out. I do like the nickname Keeks. It just
he started calling him that a lot in the last few episodes, and I enjoy it. Like it's slipping in more and more.
Yeah. So was it Briggs or do we think Critter was able to take that shot? I don't know, John. You got excited there. Was that your shot?
Well, because we've been joking on Twitter about how like Higa's like the opposite Negaverse version of Critter and vice versa.
That's so, really true.
What? Yeah, I don't know. We can chalk that up as a win in Critter's column. He doesn't get to pick up the rifle too many times in this show, so why not?
he's calculated, so maybe he's able to calculate the shot.
Sure.
Sure.
Maybe he's glasses. Maybe it helps amplify his targeting somehow. Right? Maybe they're like, you know, I don't know. I'm just
his high-tech specs. Yeah. Apparently Briggs is not able to survive this encounter and dies. So we get another death on the turtle. Speaking of death, oh my goodness. So this is a part in the episode that for me was like, WTF? Wait, what? So we get Gabriel waking up, and it's not really him, and he's a ghost. And please leave a comment down below. Oh man, yeah, go Greg for all the yelling and screaming Gabriel had at the very end.
Yeah.
But people and fans who watch this, leave a comment what you thought of. I was so surprised when Sword Art Online brings in ghosts. I was like, wait, we just changed genres of anime, kind of. We've just brought in supernatural. I'm cool with all the digital, everything like makes sense. And then they're like, by the way, ghosts exist. I'm like, what? It's super cool, but it is like totally out of nowhere for me, at least. Please leave a comment down below. So Jen, what did you think of that when it's like, wait,
I was like, wait, are we in JoJo? Is this like, because there's a scene in Diamond is Unbreakable when Kira dies, and then like Raimi's like, what's up? I'm a, you know, like, we're taking you down. And it feels really similar where it's like this girl that he's wronged who is like, I'm going to drag you down to hell. So come on down. But it's so creepy. I'm really glad I know Greg Chun, because he is such a delightful and warm and kind human. Because it's always so like Gabriel is so like, I had to stop reading the light novels because I could not handle the Gabriel stuff. I was like, I have to just skip ahead. I'm going to skip ahead to Ocean Turtle. Can't do this. But I thought it was a really powerful and a nice sort of like ghost emoji.
Yes, I like the emoji.
You know, retribution that is long overdue.
It is a chef of like,
he speaks so highly of you.
Even if it's like something that's happening in his head and isn't actually what's happening in the world, the thought that like, oh, you know, she's got her revenge is kind of awesome.
I'm gonna go with it did real world happen, because we first see him. What's a little unclear-ish, because we see Gabriel look at his body. The face is definitely weird, distorted, and that probably is a result of
I was not prepared.
We get the shot after when Critter comes in too, and the hands, Gabriel's hands on the bed and the nails, and I feel that's kind of part of it as well, that it did happen on the outside too. But that's a good point. It could be just what he sees, but then that would still imply he's a ghost.
That's true. I was like, are those the last moments of his life, or did she actually appear? Both are cool.
Oh yes. John, what did you think of this like ghost appearance and drag down to hell?
Well, that tripped me out. It was my first time seeing that. There wasn't really any need for me to see it during production. So, you know, like everybody else, I was just kind of wondering, like, where is this going? Has somebody come back to life, or what? Because it's, you know, just the idea of like them going between these worlds. There's a lot of asterisks and question marks to it. A lot of anxiety and tension, you know, as he's trying to get his hand free. I remember that's what stuck with me, was just the desperation of, you know, is he going to get out of this in some way or not? But ultimately does end up getting dragged down to the home for infinite losers, as we used to say back in the 90s.
Yes. Yeah, Alicia dragging him down. That was so... also, we see the other hands, which I wonder if our hands are of his other victims as well. Because it's like we get the other hands, which one of the shots is kind of funny because it's a weird like thigh grab. And I was like, well, that's an interesting hand placement, but you know, not for this show. And then Critter finds the bodies and everything. Also, we've talked about Miller. We got Visaga's face looking like also really weird and distorted. So it's kind of crazy this digital world was able to affect the physical body. So we kind of have a question then. John asked, you know, even though they banter a lot, do you think Critter's going to miss Visago?
Well, that sort of depends, doesn't it? Because I don't want to jump ahead, but let's just say that there were some things missing on the boat as they were leaving.
This is true.
I don't know. I think in some respects, if it really is the end for Visago, yeah, he certainly liked, dunking on him. Right from the get-go, that was kind of their relationship. They had sort of a yin-yang thing going on with Visago being the brawn and Critter being the brains, and ultimately both of them answering to a higher power. But I don't know. I think if he hadn't seen the face, if he hadn't seen what had become of him, he'd probably be like, "Oh, he's dead? Good."
Well, I like this. Commented on your scream.
Oh, thank you. That was fun.
Yeah. Oh, I like this one too. Is we got Gabriel and Visago be like, I don't feel so good. Yes. Okay, so for Critter, with his genius hacking skills in the underworld and everything, but his plans getting stopped at different times. How were those moments for you of, you are this character that is so good at what he does, but there are moments where, you do get pushback from the other team. So how were those moments for you, and how did you ground them and make it feel real?
During the performance, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Not watching it and busting balls on Twitter. I just tried to, breathe in the emotion, work with the given circumstances like any other acting sort of related thing, just put yourself in the moment and clear everything else out of the mind and just go for it, really. Mm-hmm. Is that, I feel like that's too short of an answer, or
everybody has their own process, and if that's your process,
I haven't done one of these in a while. I get distracted by the other ones.
Just because it takes me 20 sentences to say one thing doesn't mean you have to do that.
Okay. But no, just it was obviously, as the character, frustrating. I think it's even more so when the guy's like your twin, a little bit. So, not to keep harping on that joke, but just the loss of control, I think, was the biggest thing for him, because here he'd been able to like sort of play God in a sense with how he could program people into the game.
Yep.
And now here he is, like the illusion of control is going by the wayside, and everything's going to poop.
Well, also, speaking of that, I love that Critter at this point is like, why risk our lives? This is above my pay grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that line.
So he's like, I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of shows you how much, like, we don't really get a lot of his backstory, like the same way we got into Visago's. So it's interesting that he's not, you look at the different reactions to the captain dying and Visago dying. And everybody else is super pissed and still wanting to stay the course. He's just kind of done. I think maybe that just shows you how spooked he was by what had happened to his comrades. Mm-hmm. Like the reality of life and death has really started to set in here for him. So
we got a very interesting question here. I agree. Yeah, it's one of those, like, this has made it far more real, and this is not what he signed up for. He just signed up for a hacking job. Yeah. People are dying. No.
I was told there'd be catering. There wasn't any. The snack machine broke. Everybody's dead. I'm leaving.
So who's smarter, Higa or Critter?
Critter.
He's like, no question there. All right. Yay. I dig it.
I mean,
would probably also say that because I feel like he's so self-effacing.
Right? Yeah. No.
I mean, as long as we don't look at the results of how things went that day, Critter.
Yeah.
Critter thinks it's Critter.
Yeah.
We got Rinko talking to Nakanishi of like finding out there has been engine sabotage because the others who are part of our bad guy crew are just like, well, fine. If we can't have it, we're just going to destroy everything.
Yep.
So, Jen, how was that bit of learning? All right, now where you are is literally could blow up in the middle of the ocean. So you can blow up and then drown.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fun day. Not what you expected getting on that helicopter. Watching it the first time, watching the sub, I was like, no, not Nakanishi. No, not Jalen's character. Like, please don't die. Like, once you start sending in like the folks who haven't spent a lot of time with, I'm like, oh no, like what's the body count of this going to be?
Yeah.
But they're the last bastion, right? Like it's now up to all the nerds on the ocean turtle to like get in there and like do their own version of Die Hard.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that was stressful for me as like a viewer too, like watching it the first time and not knowing what was going to happen. I was like, no, like please. And then like, you know, Kikoko's like, I'm going in too. I'm like, can you all stop? How many more people are getting shot? And the answer is like literally everyone. I think Rinko's like the only one that didn't get shot.
It's a party.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to not go to the party.
Yeah. There's that one shot though of her that's might be a little later in the episode that we're talking, but she's like in the control room and it's this wide shot. It's like from behind and she's just like typing, and it's when you're like, you don't know where that other person went. And I'm like, no, Rinko, like get up, get out of the house. They're coming.
Like, don't stay there. Yeah.
Which like doesn't get paid off in that episode, but I was just like, no, like don't come after her too. She's the only one who hasn't taken a bullet.
Right? Well, then speaking of taking a bullet, we find out Keeks has been shot. I mean, we learned earlier, but he kind of hid it from Higa and then learns, you know, he's learning, you learn how much he's bleeding. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's hiding it. So it's one of those, if he thinks he's going to die anyway.
Yeah, he's going out a hero.
All right. So we get not one, but now we get a second, like, sorry, what was that?
Nothing.
Oh,
he could have peed from sheer terror. Maybe that's why.
I don't know. That was
also possible.
I'd be concerned if that was a red puddle of pee.
Oh yeah, well,
somewhere else.
It was so dark and shadowy. Maybe you couldn't. Great.
Yeah. Well, then we get another like head spin moment in this episode because we find Niemon has become activated and is piloted by a very unsuspecting person of like, wait, what? So we got Akihiko. Oh, I was like, wait, hold on. So,
it's in Akihiko's contract that he has to show up every season somewhere as AI. Like it's written into his writer for sure.
So he says to Rinko, okay, I want you to bridge the gap between reality and the virtual world. And then you momentarily forget how much of a bad person he is. Just saying. But you're like, that's a good goal.
Yeah. Right.
So Jen, how was that having this character come back and getting into this now essentially very emotional time for Rinko? Because it's like, will he make it? He's losing power. How is he even really there? And it's like, wait, what?
Yeah, there's a scene really early. It's episode 5 or 6 where I can't remember which one, where Rinko is asleep on the ocean turtle the first time she's there, and she hears Kayaba's voice. She wakes up and was like, what was that? And in the novel, it's a little further where they make it a little more clear that it's probably him. And so I think it's a little more subtle in the show. Because we know that like he's walking around, like he's managed to like float through the waves before and show up. And so when the person that you loved, also like Rinko really didn't know until the end that he was quite doing a lot of bad stuff. I don't want to say monster, but unsavory choices, terrible life choices, a lot of death, not great, not the most upstanding man, but she had like, it wasn't like, oh, my boyfriend, like I'm making excuses. She was like, what? She found it on the news. And so
I don't know. She like squeezed her necklace charm thing like so hard.
Yeah. Again, like please see a doctor. There's a lot of blood. You know, so
like, she's not shot, but she cuts herself.
She did cover for him obviously towards the end, but that's a lot of complicated feelings that she's stuffed down. You know, prior to helping out here, like she's moved to America. Like she's in Pasadena working for like JPL or whatever they don't say in the book. And she's like tried to put that whole life behind her. And so now she's dealing with Kikoka, she's dealing with Higa, she's dealing with all of that. That's already like, she's stuffed all that stuff so far down. So then all of a sudden it's like, hey honey, I'm not dead. I'm here in a robot. How you doing? Let's save some stuff.
And behold.
That's a lot to unpack. And so I think, you know, the first thought when you hear the voice of your dead lover isn't like, oh, right, like he did murder a lot of people in that game. It's like, oh my God, I thought I lost you and here you are. And okay, but focus, like, what are we doing? And like, help. It is very hard, you know, to, you know, she hasn't fully separated that, like the Akihiko that she loved from the Akihiko that was like a bridge too far. And so that's, it's complicated.
I like
it. Yeah, that's definitely her Facebook status. And so, right, like, she's trying so hard to like, okay, like this is our mission. Here's how we accomplish it. But also I'm talking to my dead ex-lover, murderer person, and trying to, she must have been lucky to find someone like Kaya, but I mean, he did put a bomb in her.
No.
Did murder a lot of people. But prior to that, when they're just hanging out on the beach and eating ramen, things are fine.
You know what? I would say, regardless of her choices in who she falls in love with, I give her mad props for being the cheer squad for the win. Essentially,
she's like, all right, it's pep talk time.
Yeah.
Robot boyfriend.
Power of love. Power of his
I am going to scream you back to life, which magically sort of works. His last little like sparks of energy. And then the very victory music. But yeah, that's a lot of emotion there of like, I can't deal with my feelings right now. I have to focus on your feelings, which I feel like is on brand for Rinko anyway.
I like that he
get to the thing.
Definitely pokes his ego of like, okay, who are you? I like you did. It's just
like, you're the biggest bad guy he ever saw. So like,
that was definitely interesting, like to kind of do like sort of a face turn, as you would say, like in wrestling, where here's this guy who's been so much trouble, and now all of a sudden you're like, please live, please do what you're setting out to do.
Yeah, because he's possibly going to save the ship because there's a bomb down in the engine room, and he's literally, well, we don't really know how he's there because is he a spirit? We've already dealt with ghosts exist, so maybe. Or is he able to, download his personality, his essence, his soul into the suit? We don't really know at this point.
I figured that's what was happening because so much of the show is based around like inserting your consciousness into like in a digital world. So that's what I was going with.
But like there is like Akihiko code sitting on the network. And since they're using his program to build the Underworld, then it's very likely that they like, not to get like programmer nerdy, but there's like a program sitting on the side that gets called of like, hello, Akihiko time. Boop. Rinko deserves a nice guy like Higa. Man, Higa tried for it a couple episodes ago. He's like, hey, you want to go get like a beef bowl? And she's like, yeah, whatever. I'll buy you a hamburger. And he's like, huh? And I'm like, well,
because it's this moment where, I think that, well, yeah.
Sorry.
Stay tuned for more on this character. We'll just say that.
I have so many thoughts about that. I won't be on this show.
I know. I'm like,
but I was like,
yes. Stay tuned for that.
I'm buying you a burger now.
Right. Yeah. So we have Neimon, Akihiko trying to disarm the bomb, possibly falling apart, dying again, and is pep talked up by Rinko and is able to do that, but disappears again. So it's like, what? Get a lot of that in this episode.
Yeah, like no one can keep track of anyone. Like, where is everybody by the end of the episode?
Right?
So many missing bodies, missing robots.
Speaking of missing bodies, we have Critter, and he's on the ship and learns like, well, okay, the bomb probably didn't go off, because they're leaving on this sub and nothing's happening. But notices there's only 2 bodies and that it's Briggs and Miller. So it's like, where is the other body?
Right.
So, John, any theories you have on where this other body is?
I'm not really sure. It's like a split second you see that he's like aged incredibly. So it's like, how could he physically still be alive? But this is a show that now has ghosts and people downloading their brains into robots. So I'm not sure. I know that some of the fan theories are that he's been taken for study by one of the groups.
That's actually a good theory.
I like that theory.
But he could still be at large. There's also the theory that he could end up being like the last villain of the series, that he somehow survived even though Gabriel couldn't.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I want to say that tree death was brutal and so fitting.
Pretty thorough. Yeah, I'd only seen something like that once before in a show. In the Yu Yu Hakusho days, there was something like that towards one of the last arcs. So it was kind of nice to see that attack used again.
I want to say it's in one of the Full Metal Alchemists. I don't remember if it's Brotherhood or regular, but there's the Wood People episode something, and that was so It's just really gross and disturbing, like a way to die or be affected, because there is pseudo real life thing like that too, which is
There's
gross.
a lot of really uncomfortable deaths on this show. You're like,
Right?
that is not how I want to go.
Yes. I think Visago's stuck, and I think even if he lived, his brain and soul could, similar to how we'll see how Kirito and Asuna deal with being alive, like just how long it will probably take him to get out of that, he just mentally would be broken by then. It just
Definitely
wouldn't be, it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
Also, I got to yell at Shaq. Damn it, Shaq!
How was that experience?
Oh, that was fun. That's what really made it all worth it. Everything was leading towards that.
Nice.
The
We
rest
also
was just
have
icing on the cake, really.
right. We look at the body. This is also when Naamon's gone. Also, we learn back. Oh, okay. Higa is saying, "Come back to us for Kirito." We don't know yet, because it's been a little over 10 minutes, so we know it's been quite a bit of time. And the last bit of the episode, which is interesting because essentially it was touched upon a little bit last episode, but this one we get Asuna and Kirito and like, aw, and don't forget anybody, and we will remember, which is just kind of crazy because I mean, like, even in our normal human lifespan, do you remember everything from like your childhood, even 5 years ago? So the thought of 200 years from now to remember everything would be like, whoo, I don't think people can do it. I'm worried about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Well, I mean, I know how bitter I have gotten at times in just, less than 200 years of life, so I can only imagine.
It's like
you're
like, who was the other
parallel
one?
to the whole quarantine thing with that, where it's like,
right,
what do you do with all the extra time?
Yes, exactly. What would they do with the time? We're gonna find out.
Get really good at talking
Spanish, but that's not for everyone, I guess.
You can finally stream all the shows you ever wanted to. No, then hold on, let's see. We got, so for Rinko, all right. So the moment, I think, essentially talking about how you can like Akihiko knowing how many people have died and being friends with Kirito, because that's another aspect to that relationship that's really complicated, of like, hi, I'm friends with both people that are like sworn enemies. No big. So did any of that come into your approach in acting that scene, or any of those moments?
Yeah, it's very complicated to be dealing with all of that in real time. Like for Rinko, she never thought that she would hear his voice again. She never thought that she would be dealing with this stuff. And so it's sort of like, you can't, if this happened to you in real life, if somebody that was gone that you loved, no matter how problematic they are, just showed up and was like, hey babe, I got a mission for you. Can you do this thing? That there's a lot happening in that moment. And so
by the way,
I think it's going to take some therapy and some time for her to really process that and how she feels about him as a concept. I don't think she's given herself that kind of time, actually. I think Rinko is somebody who is like, what if I just did a lot of work and didn't think about that part of my life?
That seems more on brand for her, yeah.
And so now I think that for her really goes, okay, I got to work all this out and deal with that. But yeah, like we said before, there is a part of her that will always love him because they had a relationship that was very special. Also, I don't think Rinko gets close to a lot of people. We start seeing her get close to Asuna. We start seeing her get closer even to Higa. And even Kikoka, who in the very beginning, she's like, I cannot stand you. And now she's kind of like, I feel like he's the guy where you're like, man, I don't want to like you, but like, you're kind of growing on me and it makes me mad that you're growing on me. Although I don't know if that's just because Matt Mercer's a genius. It feels like they've gone a little past tolerance to like, we could probably like have a good working relationship at some point. But for Rinko, there's a lot of conflicting feelings and they all have to still keep getting shoved down because there's something that's so much more important than just her.
Yeah.
And so she can't give herself that time to think about that. She just has to do what's best for everybody, even if it's not what's best for her psychologically.
And then, John, you were going to say something there?
Oh, well, I was going to just threw in a joke about how, you know, everything that Jen is saying, obviously, but oh, by the way, he's also a robot now. So that's just
right. No big.
really
Yeah.
piles on with the sort of, wait, what? The what? You're back.
Right.
Well, technically, that's also WandaVision right now. You know, it's somebody in love with a robot.
Yeah.
Just saying.
That's true. And, you know, we have set up in this show, like, the reason why, like, Ichiemon and Amon are built is to put floodlights in them. So,
Right.
like,
Yep.
this season is all about, like, what if we put some AI into some robots? So, I mean, like, that's what she's here to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's super weird that it's someone who's dead and not a little cube that they've extracted from the underworld. But in terms of all the stuff that is, like, what? In this world, for her, I think it's like, oh, of course he's in a robot. Like,
Yeah.
Obviously your AI was downloaded into this. Let's go, boyfriend, do the thing.
Speaking of boyfriend, I like this comment. Yes, we have Asana and Kirito, great anime ship, and they're angels in more ways than one. I like that. Okay, so we can love a show and make fun of it. I like that first Kirito flies, and then he gets wings to fly, and then Asuna had wings and they went away. I'm okay with her wings coming and going, but it was interesting for Kirito. It was like, I can fly. Wait, now I need wings to fly? I'm like, all right, whatever. But I love that moment where they get wings to fly off together into the who knows where next.
With all her like big fluffy wings, and he's got his little like dragonfly wings.
They're very cute. I like it.
Edgelord wings.
Also, thank you for this. I did see this posted online. Fun shout out for Ryan Birch, who was a voice guest voice. Yay, congrats. That's very exciting. I know I've been at different anime expos over the years and seen when they've done these kind of contests, and sometimes maybe you see what happens with it. So this is very cool to see somebody who, you know, competed and got it, and then we heard them on the show and it sounded great. So
yeah,
awesome.
But also, you know, was this like his first role period for anime?
I don't know on that one.
It's at least his first one through Bang Zoom.
Yeah,
I just think it's interesting that you know, great job and congratulations on the part.
Yeah.
But also, like, this is during a time where you can't go in and use the studio's equipment. So not only did he have to brace himself to be a part of this series, but he, like everybody, all of us, you know, had to get a home studio.
A dubbing from home challenge. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. And then
I remember when this got announced, and I followed him on Twitter, and then I because the show like paused for so long, I sort of I was like, oh, cool, he's going to show up on SAO. And then I was like, oh, he'll probably be in like one of the, you know, there's so many characters in Underworld. And then so I'd sort of forgotten about that. And then
he's on your team.
I was like, who is that? I was like, he sounds great. I don't recognize that voice, because usually you're watching it, you're like, oh, that's so-and-so. Cool. And so I was waiting for the credits, and I was like, oh, that's the guy that won the contest. Oh, that's so cool. I was really excited. So, and he got to be in the rest of the season, I believe. So that's really cool that it's not just like a walk on, like, what's up? Like, he'll still be on the Ocean Turtle dealing with stuff, I believe is what he said on Twitter. So that's so cool.
We will look forward to it for sure.
Hopefully the first of many projects, especially if he's set up. Like, the hard part is getting that pipeline. Which is always a challenge, which we talked about last time I was here.
And John, you kind of mentioned it of working from home. How has your working from home for voice acting, how has that experience been for you thus far? And if you could tell us a little bit about what kind of setup you use.
Well, I use the TZ Audio Stellar X2 for my mic. I'd heard a lot of good things about it. Like, coincidentally, right as the pandemic started to hit, I was hearing about how they were making stuff that was comparable to the Neumann 103 and U87. So I got one of those to check it out. And I'd also, a friend of mine, Paul St. Peter, another voice actor, he also got the X2 because, you know, why not? So that was kind of neat. We had like dueling X2s for a time. There's been a couple of hiccups with it. Obviously, the biggest hindrance that I've had with the home studio stuff has just been sometimes the inconsistency of the network connection. There was another anime I worked on shortly before we got back to work on Sword Art, Inspector, and I just kind of did some incidentals on that one, and thank God, because if you're familiar with the show, there's sort of like a trial going on, and they're representing people weighing in on a topic by way of these silhouettes. And thankfully, the silhouettes didn't have mouth flaps. The connection was just unbearable that day, and I could just kind of go by the timing of the Japanese reference rather than the visual.
Yeah.
That was something that was sort of a wake up call that, all right, we got to switch services and we got to, we don't have as fast of a setup as we thought we did. But once that was handled, there's still a little bit of a lag at times with the footage. So what I'll usually do is I'll ask the engineer to keep the beeps in the same spot for timing's sake, but rewind a little bit further and sort of give the footage a chance to catch up, like it's buffering basically.
Oh yeah.
So that's helped a lot. But like probably everybody else who's been asked about it, I'm just really grateful for the fact that it's something that I can do right now, because so many other projects are put on a shelf indefinitely. Who knows if they'll come back? Like, the wrestling can't do that right now. Some people are, but it's a huge risk. The company I'm with isn't doing it.
Yeah.
And we can't play right now. On camera, they're putting some good safety measures into place, but it's still a risk. Even at like the highest levels of production, people are getting sick. So thank God, that the voiceover is probably the only real way that you can like tell an episodic story, but keep everybody isolated in the way that we do is in the way that we record anime and ADR.
So. Yeah, no, I love it, and it's amazing that everyone works so hard from home, from the voice actors to the engineers to the voice acting directors, and you can't tell, like you wouldn't know that it's recorded in a studio. Not really. It's still getting, and then the fact that we don't have to wait longer.
And a lot of that is thanks to the the post production, the editors.
Absolutely, the mixers on this show are geniuses, because like I have a different microphone than John. I'm sure I have a different microphone than Jeremy. We all have different sets of equipment. We all have different spaces with different levels of clean audio, and they all make it sound. And normally in the before times, we record in the same, not necessarily the same exact booth, but like Bang Zoom has a couple of buildings and a bunch of spaces, so we're always in there. So it's something that's very controlled to all sound alike, and that's not what our rooms are like. And so the fact that it doesn't sound any different quality between everyone wise from an episode from a year ago when we were all recording in the booth versus we're all in different spaces and like listening to it, I'm just like, you don't know that like
like the overall
on this show, like on this episode, I did a lot of screaming.
These shows have background music, and that maybe hides any little.
That helps. But they make it sound like we all recorded on the same equipment, even though we didn't. Certainly, like the challenge on like this episode for me is like Rinko isn't a super loud character. She's done a lot of yelling in the last few episodes. There's a lot of like yelling down ducts and things. But the screaming at the end of it was like, you have to be careful when you scream. If you record too loud, like it can clip. And I'm like, you have to like, be like, okay, I'm looking at the script. I'm looking at the mouth. I'm looking at my levels. That's a lot of eyes that I don't have. Like, that's more places than I can look. And I remember like, not even like at some point I stopped looking at stuff and just did the line. Like I'd memorized it to try to, and I was hitting the timing from my brain because I was like, I have to, because you're like, I have to act it to be the moment, but I also have to make sure that thing doesn't go red. And I remember doing like one really good take and they were like, yeah, I think that clipped. Can we do another one for safety? And I'm like, Alex is so kind and such a good director, but he's always like, do you need a minute? Like, do you need some water? Like, do you also just need to take a moment for you? And I'm like, hold on. Okay, I'm good. And so, for that kind of stuff, that's also much more of a challenge for characters where we're talking like this, and then you have that like extra tech hiccup of like, can you act your brains off and cry and scream, but also like keep your eyeball on that meter to make sure it doesn't, because we're all sort of partially engineering for ourselves, not in the same way our genius engineer and recording engineer friends do, but we're definitely like turning knobs and things while we're recording to keep everything perfect. And the engineers on the other side are all working extra hard to make it sound like we're not doing that. So,
John, what were you saying?
Oh, I don't recall. I think I was just agreeing with her point.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I'll say aside from like internet lag, maybe it's just kind of on the same point, is just sometimes it does take away. If you are experiencing some technical issues that day, it can take you out of the mindset of being in the character a little bit. But again, that's where you just have to trust your director and engineer that. Because I'm the type that like I'll want to do take after take after take all day if given the choice. Like for the big scream when he Critter sees Visago and Gabriel. I think that was actually take one of the big horror movie.
Nice.
Just to Alex liked what he heard, but I said, I got another one in you if you want. So I gave him a couple more just to do it and make sure he had variety and options. But I guess at the end of the day, a scream is a scream. So.
Yeah. A reference to something you said earlier, and then someone joined later. As Jen, you were saying, Gabriel's death similar to you were referencing JoJo.
That's what I thought of.
Yes. Thank you for people joining in late. No worries.
That makes me feel good that I wasn't the only one. I worked on that season, so that's why it was very present in my mind. I'm like, yeah, small girls get their revenge on bad guys.
Yes.
I'm here for it.
Nice. And then we also had, because we're pretty much, that was the end of the episode, but scrolling back here. Yes, the ending. Oh, there we go. The ending theme song, which I do. Yeah, the theme songs this season are so good.
They're so good.
It gets me pumped at the beginning, like especially this back half. I think it was a little bit different in the first half, but this one that's going now, I'm like, Josh, it's like
I still listen all the way through. Like I don't ever skip it. I don't. Sometimes you skip it when you're watching like the sub, but I never skip it on this one.
I've had the opening kind of stuck in my head, and which is a problem because I don't know the lyrics. So
you just know like the beat.
Yeah.
It just
want to sing with it, but you don't know.
I remember having an audition recently, and they needed you to sing a song, and it was all going to be like all like J-pop stuff, and I'm like, I don't have any samples to sing. What do I know? And I was like, well, I know all the SAO theme songs. So I like stayed up all night, like trying to translate a verse from like one of the SAO songs and like did a really bad recording of it. Was like, this is an example? Is that fine? And they were like, yeah, I mean, don't become a lyricist. But I'm like, all those songs are always in my head. So like, that's the first thing I thought of. Nobody asked. It's not going to see the light of day, people. So don't be like, I want that clip of Jen singing that song. You don't.
Social media. About that later. Yay.
Nobody wants that. As soon as I said it, I'm like, mistakes.
Yes, there we go.
All the Lisa songs are amazing.
True. Yeah. SAO music has been really well done and it's pretty well known. Leave a comment down below. My thought when I was hearing this last bit, it totally made me think of like you're sitting in an expo at a panel and it's like the preview for the new season. Like that's the music that plays. And I'm like, it makes me so pumped and sad at the same time.
Right?
I'm like, I'm in a convention right now.
I also really like that track that comes on when usually like a villain is sort of monologuing where it's like, That's
actually there's another music moment I would love to bring up, which is when you hear Akihiko the first time, there's that like really sad music that plays, and that's from the early episode where they do the flashback to young Rinko and Akihiko when their relationship was good, and he's talking about like, he's like has this dream about a castle, and so it's the exact same theme. And so for me internally, because I know all those scenes so well, I was like, the song, oh god, it hurts so much. So like, musically, where it's going like right before it happens.
Yes.
It's so brilliant. They did such a good job. They do a lot of really smart things calling back musical themes to earlier parts.
Okay. Yeah, I love the callbacks of the music, the melodies coming back. And as John, as you said, the kind of like,
choir?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say orchestral. I'm like, no, because it's like a choir. When they if you put it on subtitles, closed caption on TV, it says like, it says like voices singing or something like that. And I was kind of like, sure, I don't feel that fully captures the intensity of it. But I like it.
Sometimes when it's an organ, it sounds like voices. So
yeah,
what's going on?
The music's so good.
Sounds like a lady. So we have.
Episodes left?
Well, they have the last bit of time they need to log out. We kind of covered that too. I guess the thought is, what were you thinking maybe for Rinko too when they find out that Akihiko disappeared? I feel that's kind of where that one's going.
Yeah,
too.
like then you have to deal with loss a second time of someone who just came back, and you're like, oh, I guess you're alive. Oh, I guess you're dead. Like, yeah, I mean, Rinko needs like a cookie and a nap and like a lot of therapy from all of this. I think part of it is like, being upset again that like if she could, I'm sure there are lots of unanswered things that she would want to talk to him about that she never brought up. But then there's also that relief of I don't have to deal with this. And I can just compartmentalize myself and fold into myself and not have emotions. So I think it's probably both. I don't think Rinko ever has one piece of subtext going on at all in any of these remaining episodes. I think there's always 7 monologues that she's trying to shut up.
That's a good point. Yeah, for sure. She has like so much. Oh, there we go. Yes. Paid vacation for Rinko.
Right? Yeah. Why do I keep voicing characters, Nick, that are all completely overworked?
Yeah. Critter's like, Critter is quitting and getting a better job because he doesn't like the work environment he's been placed in.
Yeah, he's going to maybe go back to veterinarian school and see if that's something he wants to pursue. There's a lot less nearly getting shot and blown up.
Rinko's on vacation too.
Dogs and kitties, so maybe that.
Yeah.
Like she definitely had to take time off from work to like go on the Ocean Turtle. So like this is her day off. That's not okay.
Not good plan. No.
Yeah. She packed one outfit. Like this was not expected.
The lab coats go with everything, so it works.
She packed her heels because she only had those sneakers in the beginning, and I think about that every episode where she's got her heels on again, and I'm like,
girl, why? Yeah.
Gotta pack your heels. It's always important.
Actually, I think Critter should go into tech support, and I think that would be a good fit for him because then he can just treat everybody as badly as he did Visago.
I like it, yeah, because he'd be like, "Oh, you're such a moron. Let me, what's the problem?" And like type it away.
Try turning it off and turning it back on again.
My screensaver to work. Should I turn it off and on? Good idea for a dumbass.
Now
like,
I just want to watch that. I want like the side story.
What was that podcast we were gonna make from that screen cap? Remember, it was the little closed caption was just Critter yelps. So he'll do that.
I like it. I want to see that too. I want to see like a short film of Critter at tech support. Yes.
Rinko calls it as like, "Hey, my boyfriend isn't a robot."
Oh yeah, that's funny. I was on a thing where somebody's robot was foiling my elaborate.
How do I fix that?
Is there a bomb involved?
Gotta go.
Nice. Well, that covered everything that's in episode 21 Beyond Time. Were there any other moments that have been up to this point that have stood out for you, John, that as Critter or as a fan of the show watching it, anything that you thought was cool up till this point?
I mean, there's so many. Every episode is such a highlight reel. Some of the episodes where you see all these other characters come back again. I mean, everybody's already made the comparison to Endgame, but I mean, yeah, that same elation of callbacks and references and like, oh, them again. That was fun. They did a really good job building up to Kirito's return.
Mm-hmm.
I like the piggies.
I love them too.
It's just fun to see. I should also confess there was a minor character I did early in the previous half of Alicization where they're giving somebody a hard time and I'm sort of this bully going like, all he would say is He didn't really have a name, but I just remember that was a really uncomfortable scene and I was like, yeah, sorry. I didn't realize that was gonna be as bad as it was. But yeah, they were picking on somebody. I can't remember if it was
it Renly, probably? The one that Morgan voices with the green hair? I
think so.
He gets picked on a lot.
But that was another one that but yeah, no, but all the moments that I'd mentioned, just such a good series, my God.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Jen, any comments for you of anything else up to this point for Rinko or as a fan watching it?
Yeah, we talk a lot about, like what is reality, what is like the real world versus the underworld. And there's so many interesting moments in the last several episodes where the people in the underworld, Asana comes down from the sky and is like, cool, you're all in a simulation. And we need to save my boyfriend. And also, yeah, none of this is real, but you're real, but are you? And that's like a lot for them to all unpack. And it would be very easy for them to just be like, okay, space lady, like, no. But the fact that they all sort of rally and combine their cause of like, protecting their world and protecting these people, even though they don't know what's going to happen to them, because, they could get out and someone could turn the switch off. And so even though for the Underworld people, they don't know what's next, to the way they unite with all of the characters you've been waiting to see come back, and Leafa and all of them, the way they all like team up and work together, I think is really powerful and interesting. And it makes you think like, oh God, like, can they back up everybody? Like, is there a save? I remember saying to Alex, I'm like, why are they not backing up to an external server? Because like, you should just be able to like bring back Yu-Gi-Oh and like Cardinal. Like, who is not doing tape backup on the Ocean Turtle? That guy should get fired. But you hope that, these characters that we've all come to care about, whether they're the piggies or Renly or all the other knights, yeah, what happens to them? What happens to them in future seasons? So yeah, I think about that a lot.
There was one other moment. The death of Amari's character was I'm a big sucker for, I wouldn't call it a trope, but like
Uncle Bercoli. Yes.
When you see like the soul of like their departed lover, like the afterlife, like there was a bit like that in the season of Gundam Iron Blooded that I worked on, and just anytime I see that, just chills. Yeah. It really taps into that primal urge that we have to like want to reconnect with someone who's passed, and that would be such a miracle to have that chance.
Every Yu-Gi-Oh moment too, I'm just like, oh, Yu-Gi-Oh, got too soon,
right?
He was my favorite. So I like how that's all come back too, but I'm just like.
Girl, let me grab my tissues. Like, yeah.
But the way they're much like with Kayaba, like people are always sort of with you. Just sometimes they manifest to a robot, sometimes they're just in your thoughts. Hard to say.
Nice. All right, and then we have. All right, thank you so much, everybody who's been joining the live chat. Loving the questions. If you're watching it later, comment down below. So kind of a fun question that I've asked before from some of the other voice actors. What is some voice acting advice you wish you could have told yourself when you started? Ooh. I'll give you a second to think about it. So
I've got an answer if you want to ponder.
And there, go, Jen.
People often say, like, you are enough and you need to bring you to a character. And that's really true. I was talking the other night with some friends about voiceover in general. And they said, you book the roles that are meant to like find you. And like for me with Rinko, when I auditioned for Rinko, I didn't overthink it. I didn't think about what do I think they want from Rinko? What do, this says she's a scientist, she's smart, she's this, she's that. I didn't get in my brain about what that meant. I just was like, oh, I connect to this woman. I've been in a position, like I've worked in an industry like that. I've, suffered loss. I've whatever. And I put that little piece of me into my audition. And that's why Rinko came back. And so it's very easy to look at a piece of copy, whether it's a commercial, animation, anime, a video game, and go, let me do what I think they want. Because then if they get 200 auditions, they're getting 190 auditions of people doing what they think they want. And they're getting 10 people who are doing what they do and who are putting their heart into it. And those are the ones that are going to stand out. And those are the ones that are going to get those parts. Because it's not just I'm being a scientist. It's like, well, what's my version of Rinko's story? What can I, Jen Losi, bring to this? And that's why I think I was cast as Rinko, because I put my heart into that audition very hard. And I have a problem myself. I get in my head and I worry about that. And I think too much about, I float outside and go was that voice interesting enough? Was that choice good enough? But the things where I haven't thought, I don't say I thought hard about it because I don't mean that, but where I haven't overthought it, those are the parts that I've gotten. And so I'm going to say that, what makes you interesting, what makes your version of the story interesting is coming from you and not what you think it's supposed to be. So I challenge you, voice actors, no matter where you are in your career, to make sure you're telling your version of that story. because that's going to be more interesting than the generic one you think is the right one. So do that. Get yourself a Rinko.
Well said, yeah. Well, we know she's really good at cheering people on, so.
I'm really good at pep talks. That's my actual mutant power.
You're like, all right, everybody, let's do this.
Yeah. Pep talks.
All right.
And spreadsheets. That's it. That's all I have.
And John, this way. There we
go. Like if you could give yourself advice, like from the very beginning, or
yeah, from the very beginning, or if there's something else that comes to mind. Because I like for.
Yeah, because I mean, I know
no, yourself. Well, because for example, for anybody else, kind of like why are we talking about voice acting advice? So often you see the like, how do you get into voice acting? It's such a cookie cutter question. No offense to anybody who's asked it. Like you can look that up. There are plenty of answers. There's so many resources. But what's something that's really interesting, especially for each unique individual voice actor, what is something of your own journey that like maybe now where you are, you realize from back then that's like, oh, I wish I could have told myself this. And maybe there isn't necessarily something that comes to mind, or maybe it's just something that you took for granted then and you didn't realize how important it is. And now you're like, oh my gosh, this is an important thing. Remember that. Anything along those lines. And absolutely, if it's more unique to you, because that's what's interesting, as kind of as Jen was saying, of, it's like, what is your thing? Because surprisingly, plenty of people could probably actually relate to individual stories, even if it is a unique experience.
Well, I think one thing I would have done is I definitely wish that I'd reached out to more companies earlier on. Like there's a lot. I can remember sort of putting my eggs in one basket as far as who I'd planned to work with back in the day. And then when that didn't go exactly the way that I'd planned, I sort of said, all right, I guess it's just not meant to, I'd always kept my one foot in the pool, as it were, but I also ventured off and do a lot of other things, stand up and on camera and such. I think, but again, it was also like lack of knowledge at the time. I didn't know about the names and I didn't know how to reach them and so on and so forth. Definitely one thing that I learned fairly quickly, but I think I could have learned it faster, was I fell into the impressionist trap of thinking that I should, go for everything. And it's sort of like, if they want somebody who sounds like he's 89 years old, John, they're going to find an actor who's 89 years old and stuff like that. So I think maybe at times I cast, there's definitely a lot to be said for stretching as an actor and not limiting yourself, but also finding the niches that you do best and choosing to focus your energies more on that rather than maybe overexerting yourself and then getting discouraged when you're not booking every single thing that you went out for, because some of those things maybe you shouldn't have. So you could have been spending your time maybe working more on an audition that was more within your wheelhouse. So that's probably one that I would go back and talk to myself a little bit about if I had the chance.
Excellent advice. We had where'd it go? There we go. Yes. Thank you for sharing. I think both your experiences and your advice are great, because that's a good point of like
advice.
I mean, that's a really good point of if you don't. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, just John? Hindsight is cliche, but hindsight is 20/20, of course.
Yeah.
Right. But that's a good point of mentioning the companies and researching who are the people making voice jobs, essentially. Like it's not just anime. There's video games, there's audiobooks, there's commercial, there's a lot more out there. And you don't know that if one could lead to the next or help your technique in one versus the other. So that's an excellent point of, just do your research. We have the interwebs at our fingertips that it's easy now to, just what are some of them, or, follow voice actors online and see where people are working from. Excellent. I like it. Thank you. Thank you both. Those both
the credits when they say produced by, then you're like, what? I need to know more about that company. Do they let anybody submit reels? Like, is it just like a secret society that someone has to send you to? Because there are both those kinds of places, I would like to say though, like, because John's advice is great, but also, if you knock on a door and no one answers, like, that doesn't mean like you shouldn't knock on other doors.
That was I was gonna touch on is like, don't take it personally.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
I think sometimes there's people that get too into the competitive mind rather than the creative mind,
Yeah.
not
Mm.
realizing all the multitude of variables that
Right.
go into booking every single role.
Mhm.
And you know, this isn't a trap that I necessarily fell into or anything, but I can see I see sometimes like if they didn't get what they went out for, they feel like that somebody's against
Right.
them. And
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
really not. It's just, you might have
Yeah.
been great work, you might have been in the yes pile amongst five other
Mhm.
actors that they narrowed it down to, but just
Yeah.
personally, I don't think I'll ever go into casting because it's so many things that you have to like juggle when making that decision. That the amount of
Yeah.
pressure now with how much scrutiny the fans put every dub under, and always
Yeah.
have, I guess, but now even more so because the bar has been set so high.
I have done some casting, and I think, very much like there'll be a yes pile, and every one of those actors could do a great job. I recently cast something that was an animated project, and there were like 3 or 4 people for each role who all could have crushed it. They all would have been amazing. And what we did was we started putting all those voices together and going, oh, they sound like a family. They sound like, or these 3 people that are a trio through this whole movie sound like their dynamic together is perfect. Individually, everyone was genius, but it just happened that like these couple of people just together was like an extra bit of magic. And so that doesn't mean what you did wasn't great, because some of those auditions were the best auditions I've ever heard. And I was like, that's an amazing audition. And I wish I could, and casting, you get that. You're like, I want to use everyone. I want to use everyone that's good. Casting is always on your side. One, because you solve a problem for them. If you are the right thing, you're like, oh, I'm done. Thank God. It's good. I'm going to send this. I'm going to look so good. They want everyone to be perfect, because when you're listening to like 800 files in the middle of the night, you're like, I want to love every one of these because I just need you to be what I need. So just because you didn't book something now doesn't mean you won't book something from there. I have worked on projects where I auditioned for one project, and a year later, I was cast in something else they were doing. And it wasn't even the same genre. And they were like, we loved your audition for this, and it was right for this. And it was a year. It was like 11 months later. So know that, like, I'm just dispensing unasked for advice, but like, know that everything you put out there, anytime you send good work out into the world, like someone is going to notice. It just might not, like, you can't think of it as booking that job. Right. You have to think of it as like, I am showing you what I could do for any time you're ready. And maybe it will be that gig, like Rinko. I auditioned for Rinko. There's a lot of other things I've worked on that are not the character I read on. Or later on, they're like, oh yeah, come in. So you can't like try to detach the immediate results, because you'll make yourself crazy if you don't. And know that anytime you send good work out into the world, eventually it will book you something. It may not be tomorrow.
There was a kind of on that note, there was a line that I learned like from when I was doing sales for a while that I wish I'd learned earlier, because I could have applied it more to the acting career earlier, was be professionally involved but emotionally detached.
Yeah.
Your job isn't necessarily to book that one role. You don't have control over that. What you do have control over is doing the absolute best work you can do in the room or on that MP3 file to parlay it over to more specific terms.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, we've gotten some great advice here at the end of the show. So thank you,
love
everybody.
That character, and then send it off and never think about it again.
Well, where can people follow you more? Yay, nice. Where can people follow you online? Pardon?
I said, yes, stay home, make good choices, wear a mask. Right. Thank you, John.
Where can people follow you online? And if you have any projects that are recent or maybe not so recent and people haven't heard about it, where can they find you online, John?
On Twitter, I'm at King John Allen. No real meaning behind the word, just kind of a Daffy Duck, false bravado kind of thing. On Instagram, it's at the John Allen. Again, it amazes me that people like take that seriously. Like, oh, he thinks he's a king now. Like, no, that's the point, is that I'm spoofing people that do think that way. Some things that I'm in that came out recently. Kuroko's Basketball is streaming on Netflix right now. Phantasy Star Online 2. I don't think I mentioned that one yet, so it's kind of an exclusive here. Keep on buying them Gujitsu toys, because I like doing the commercials for those.
Awesome.
Heroes of Gujitsu.
And Jen.
I am most recently announced as the voice of Ganyu in Genshin Impact. I see a lot of my friends who play that have been commenting. It's my character is currently playable, and you can get her for the next like I was like, math is hard, 8 days or so. But she's in the game all the time. I stream on Twitch at Jen Losi, and that's also my Twitter handle. So you could find me playing and come hang out. A lot of the other voice actors from the game, we all play together, and we often answer voiceover related questions. So you're always welcome to stop by, play some video games, and just, be like, hey, I do a thing. Yeah. Nick is one of my mods who makes everything magical so that I can try to pretend I know what I'm doing. But it's really awesome to be part of these projects that people love and care about, and get to connect with the community and meet people. Like, I have friends that I made because I was tweeting about SAO, so we're lucky we get to do what we do from our homes, and we're lucky for folks like you watching who make it possible. So thank you for supporting us. Thank you for supporting Dubs. Thank you for defending SAO when it gets heated on the internets. And thank you for having us to talk about all this stuff.
Thank you.
I'm like looking right at you, like you can see that I'm looking at you, but I'm just staring adoringly at you in your upper left corner on my screen.
Yeah, no, huge thank you both of you for joining me and talking about SAO. And I really laughed about defending SAO because I'm like, yes, this is a show that I love making fun of as well, because I like the show. And I think when you like something, you can make fun of it because you care. Because we've made jokes on this show. We definitely made fun of Kirito's harem last week. So thank you for all my guests last week. I was
still this girl on the harem, so...
we had a whole bunch of people, big full house on that. Thank you to all of them joining. And you all can find me. Wait, it's like a mirror, so it's like backwards.
Yeah.
Wait. Yeah, over here. Yeah. No, this way. Yes, over here. You can find me online at Carrie D Lane on Twitter and Instagram. And on Instagram, on my IGTV stories, you can see hour-long interviews with voice actors, as well as unboxing. So I'll be doing an unboxing later tonight from Japan Crate. So diving into some Japanese snacks. Super excited. That's always fun and yummy. And so tune in here every week. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. Who knows who will show up for the last 2 episodes? That is crazy. We're at the end. So we'll see who's going to be here. Yeah. So again, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. And thank you, Jen and John, for joining me. It was super fun talking SAO with you both.
Thanks for having us.
All right, everybody. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye.